Warren Voss tore Miriam Bell's return ticket in half before Caleb even knew her name. She stood in the open yard of False Kettle stage stop with one gloved hand on a green trunk and the other pressed flat against her skirt. The stage driver saw the torn paper at Warren's boots. So did the hostler. So did Hattie Crow from the warm boarding house door. "If Caleb will not take what was sent to him," Warren said, "then she can freeze here until the agency writes back." Caleb had not ordered a bride, but he knew a trap when a woman was left inside one. The driver looked away first. The hostler followed. Hattie kept one hand on the warm door latch and did not open it. The woman did not cry. That was the first thing Caleb noticed. Her face went pale from cold and insult, but she kept her chin level. "I paid for passage both ways if the match proved false," she said. "My name is Miriam Bell. I am 26 years old. I came because the letter bore Caleb Voss's mark." "My brother never wrote you," Warren said. Caleb stepped down from his freight sled before anyone could turn and warn Warren. The wind pushed hard from the north, throwing dry snow across the stage yard in thin white ropes. It caught Miriam's shawl and snapped it against her arm. "Half-brother," Caleb said. Warren's mouth tightened. Caleb looked at the torn ticket. Then he looked at Miriam. He had come for lamp oil, coffee, and 2 sacks of oats before the pass closed. He had not come for a bride. He had not written to any agency. Since Ruth died, he had not let any woman carry his name, even in rumor. But Miriam Bell was standing in the snow with a ruined road behind her and a closed road ahead. "I did not order a bride," Caleb said. The stage yard went quiet. Miriam's fingers tightened on the trunk handle. Warren smiled because he thought the cruelty was finished. Caleb picked up the torn pieces of the ticket and held them where the driver could see. And no woman gets left at False Kettle in a blue norther because Warren Voss wants a show. Hattie Crow folded her arms in the boarding house doorway. "I've no room for trouble." "You have 3 empty cots by the stove," Miriam said. "Not for agency women whose papers are disputed." "Agency women." Miriam heard the label land before she felt the cold. It made her sound ordered, used, and returnable. The words hit the yard harder than the wind. Caleb saw Miriam take them in. Not just the refusal, but the way Hattie dressed it in respectability, as if a cold woman could be made improper by standing too near a door. "Mrs. Crow," Caleb said, "you will put her by your stove while I hitch the second blanket over my sled." Hattie looked toward Warren before she answered. That small glance told Caleb more than her words. "I said no." Warren tipped his hat back. "There, the town agrees." "False Kettle is not a town," Caleb said. "It is a stove, a barn, and 6 people too scared of your freight book to speak plain." The driver shifted his boots. The hostler looked at the ground. Miriam swallowed once. "Mr. Voss, I did not come to force any man. If you say the letter was false, I will go back when the road is safe." "It is not safe tonight," Caleb said. "Then I will sit in the stage barn." "No," Caleb said it too sharply, and her eyes lifted to his. He lowered his voice. "You will sit under a roof that has a decent fire with a woman in the next room and a road out when weather gives one. You will not be claimed. You will not be traded. And you will not be left where he can call your danger proof against you." For the first time, Miriam's face changed. Not softness, not trust, just the smallest break in fear, the kind a person made when she heard a door latch lift after expecting a bar. Warren laughed. "You have learned a fine speech since Ruth died." Caleb turned on him. Every man in the yard knew about Ruth. Warren made sure of that. 3 years ago, Caleb had trusted Warren's black road ribbons during a storm and taken his wife toward the north shelter. The ribbons had led them wrong. Ruth had sickened after that night. The baby she carried had not lived. By spring, Ruth had gone too. Since then, Caleb had locked the north shelter, shut the stove, and let no freight broker use the Snowmelt Road. Warren wanted it open. He wanted the road, the shelter, and the winter freight contract that came with them. Now he had sent a wrong bride under Caleb's name and put her in the snow like a tool. "Say her name again," Caleb said, "and I will forget you share my father's blood." Warren's smile thinned. "You threaten me in front of witnesses." "No, I warn you in front of cowards." Caleb took Miriam's trunk before Warren could reach for it. It was heavier than he expected. She had packed for a life, not a visit. "Mr. Voss," she said quietly, walking beside him toward the sled, "if your ranch is not proper for me to enter, say so now." "My mother lives there," Caleb said. "Alma Voss has more sense than this yard put together." "And you?" He looked at her then. Snow had gathered on the dark hair at her temples. Her mouth was steady, but the hand near her skirt trembled once and stopped. "I sleep in the tack room when there is a woman under my roof who has not chosen me," he said. Miriam looked away first, but not before color touched her face. Behind them, Warren called out, "You take her, you own the scandal. I will have every freight man from here to Laramie know Caleb Voss brought a bride home and denied it after." Caleb tied Miriam's trunk behind the sled and checked the wool over the seat. "Then they will know I brought a cold woman out of a yard where my brother tore her ticket," he said. The wind struck hard enough to make the stage sign groan. Miriam climbed into the sled without help, then paused and looked back at the boarding house door. Mrs. Crow. Hattie would not meet her eyes. "When another woman comes through this stop with a false letter," Miriam said, "do not ask Warren Voss whether she deserves fire." Hattie's mouth opened, but no answer came. Caleb flicked the reins. The sled runners scraped over hard snow, then dropped into the road south. False Kettle disappeared behind a wall of white. For the first mile, neither of them spoke. Caleb kept his shoulders square and his attention on the horse team. The Snowmelt Road ran between two low ridges where black willow stakes marked the safe bend. Warren's freight men tied black ribbons to bad roads and good roads both, depending on where he wanted a driver to go. Caleb had torn down 3 of those ribbons that winter. Tonight he saw 2 new ones fluttering on the wrong side of the draw. Miriam saw them too. "Those marks," she said, "are they yours?" "No." "Then they should not be there." Caleb glanced at her. "You know road marks." "My father kept a stage station in Nebraska before fever took him. In snow country, a wrong ribbon can kill faster than a gun." There was no pride in the way she said it, only knowledge. Caleb respected that more than a boast. "Warren uses black because it shows against snow," he said. "And because a frightened driver will follow anything that looks deliberate." That was exactly right. The team pulled hard into the next rise. Caleb reached down, took his knife from his boot, and cut the nearest ribbon as the sled passed. Miriam watched the strip of black cloth fall into the snow. "You believe me about the ticket?" she asked. "I saw him tear it." Men see things and then call them smaller. Caleb held the reins tighter. "I have done that before." She did not ask him what he meant. He was grateful and ashamed at once. Snowmelt Ranch came into sight near dusk. Its house crouched low against the wind, with the barn and smokehouse on one side and the shut north road beyond the back rise. The house was not grand. It was clean, square, and built by a man who expected whether to argue with every wall. Alma Voss opened the door before Caleb knocked. His mother was 70 and narrow as a stove poker, with silver hair braided down her back and eyes that could freeze a lie where it stood. She looked from Caleb to Miriam, then to the trunk. "That is not coffee," Alma said. "No," Caleb answered. "This is Miriam Bell. Warren sent a false bride letter in my name. He tore her ticket when I refused the claim. The storm closed behind us." Alma looked at Miriam. "How old are you?" 26, ma'am. "Do you want my son?" Miriam's lips parted in surprise. Caleb closed his eyes for 1 second. "I do not know your son," Miriam said. Alma nodded. "Good, come in before your ears freeze." The house smelled of beans, lamp oil, and old pine. Miriam stepped inside carefully, not as if she feared dirt, but as if she feared taking more room than she had been given. Caleb set her trunk near the wall. He did not cross behind her. He did not touch her elbow. He saw Alma notice that. "You will sleep in the small room by mine," Alma said. "Door has a bar on your side. Caleb sleeps out." "I can sleep by the stove," Miriam said. "Not while I am alive." That settled it. Caleb brought in wood, then stood by the back door while Alma gave Miriam broth. Miriam held the bowl in both hands and drank like a woman, reminding herself not to hurry. On the far wall, under a flour sack cover, hung the Old North Shelter map. Miriam's eyes went to it once. Caleb moved without thinking and pulled the sack lower. Alma saw. "Maps do not heal by being hidden," she said. "Neither do dead women," Caleb answered. Silence hit the room. Miriam set the bowl down. "I should not be inside a family grief." "You were put there by Warren," Alma said. "That makes it his shame, not yours." Caleb looked at Miriam then and felt something he did not welcome. It was a sharp awareness of her dignity under injury, the kind that made a man want to stand nearer. So he made himself step back. "At first light," he said, "if the south road opens, I will take you to the stage myself. If it does not, you stay here under my mother's word until it does." Miriam nodded. "And if the agency letter truly carries your mark?" "Then Warren stole it or forged it. Either way, no vow exists because you did not choose it with truth." Her eyes met his. "You speak as if choice matters even when no one else can hear." "It matters most then." Alma made a small sound that might have been approval or pain. That night Caleb lay on a saddle blanket in the tack room and listened to the storm lean against the roof. He heard the house door open once. His hand went to the rifle by habit, though he did not lift it. Miriam crossed the yard in Alma's coat with a lantern held low. He opened the tack room door before she reached it. "Are you leaving?" he asked. "Checking your mare," she said. "The bay won by the end stall. She is coughing." Caleb stared at her. "I heard it from the small room," Miriam said. "Stage horses cough like that when snow dust gets in the throat. If she is carrying your team tomorrow, she needs warm mash." Caleb should have told her to go back inside. Instead, he stepped aside. The mare coughed again. Miriam moved calmly, not with a bride's practiced helplessness, but with a station keeper's daughter who knew the cost of losing an animal on a winter road. She mixed warm bran, checked the water bucket, and stood back before the horse lowered its head. "She trusts quiet hands," Miriam said. "So do most creatures that have been handled badly." Miriam glanced at him. The lantern made the side of her face warm and the rest shadowed. "Were you handled badly, Mr. Voss?" The question should have offended him. It did not. "By grief," he said. "By my own pride before that." She did not press. The mare ate. The wind shook snow loose from the barn roof in a soft slide. Miriam wrapped her arms tight against the cold. Caleb wanted to put his coat around her. He did not. He took it off and hung it on a stall peg within her reach. "That is not the same as touching," he said. She looked at the coat, then at him, and a faint smile changed her face. It was the first one he had seen. "You make rules for kindness. I make fences around what Warren would twist. Maybe kindness needs a gate too." Caleb had no answer. From the road beyond the barn, a freight bell clanged once in the dark. Caleb looked toward it. Warren was already moving pieces while the house slept. In the morning, the south road was closed. The snow had piled hard against the low cut below False Kettle. Caleb and Miriam saw it from the ridge, with Alma wrapped in quilts on the sled behind them, because she refused to trust anyone's report but her own eyes. At the edge of the drift, 3 black ribbons snapped on willow stakes that had not held ribbons yesterday. They pointed east toward the old North Freight track. Caleb's jaw hardened. "He is marking drivers toward the North Shelter," Miriam said. "It is closed." "Does he know that?" "He knows I closed it." Alma drew the quilt tighter around her. "Warren knows more than that. He knows why." Caleb climbed down and cut the first ribbon. Miriam went to the second before he could stop her. "Careful," he said. She looked back. "If I am too delicate to cut cloth, I am too delicate to survive your brother." Half-brother, Caleb almost said, but Warren had become his brother whenever blame was being counted. Miriam cut the ribbon and tucked it into her pocket instead of letting it fall. "Why keep it?" Caleb asked. "Because a lie you can hold is harder for a liar to rename." It was not proof enough to save them. Caleb knew that. A black ribbon could have come from any coat, any freight load, any careless hand, but Miriam was not treating it as a magic answer. She was building a trail of behavior. Back at Snowmelt, Warren waited by the feed shed with 2 freight men and a thin clerk named Noel who kept Warren's accounts. Warren's sled stood near the barn, loaded with flour, salt pork, lamp oil, and stove pipe. Caleb saw what he wanted at once. "The North Shelter." "You are trespassing," Caleb said. Warren smiled at Miriam. "Still here, that will make the story travel faster." Miriam stood beside Alma and said nothing. "I have 3 freight teams coming through by dusk," Warren said. "The South Road is closed. Your North Shelter has the only stove between here and Laramie Bend." "It is closed too." "Then open it." "No." Warren stepped close enough that Caleb smelled tobacco on his coat. "You will open that shelter or every man holding your winter beef note will hear you let freight freeze because a false bride made you stubborn. My beef note is not yours. It passes through men who listen to me." Caleb's hand curled at his side. Miriam spoke before he could. "If the North Road is unsafe, sending teams there is not business. It is murder with a bill attached." Warren turned toward her slowly. "A bride should learn silence before she tries ranch talk." Caleb moved 1 step, but Alma's cane struck the porch hard. "She is not a bride," Alma said, "and she reads snow better than you read souls." One of Warren's freight men looked down to hide a grin. Warren saw it, his face hardened. "Noel," he said, "mark Snowmelt credit closed until the shelter opens. No oats, no lamp oil, no freight exchange. If Caleb wants to keep a woman under his roof, he can feed her on pride." That was the live move Caleb had expected and dreaded. It was not paper anymore. It was feed, heat, and road access. It was winter pressure against a house with 1 old woman and 1 stranded bride inside. Alma had 1 sack of oats left, 2 lamp tins, enough coffee for maybe 3 mornings if nobody asked for a second cup. Miriam understood. Caleb saw it in her eyes. He also saw her straighten. "Mr. Voss," she said to Warren, "you have mistaken hunger for obedience." Warren's gaze sharpened with dislike. "You have been here 1 night. Long enough to know you are colder than the weather." The freight man who had grinned turned his face away again. Warren climbed into his sled. By tonight, every road man will know Caleb Voss keeps an agency woman and denies her name. By tomorrow, they will know his mother sits in the dark because he will not do business. He snapped the reins. Caleb watched the sled leave, anger burning low in his chest. Miriam came down from the porch. "Where is the nearest open road?" "South if the wind drops." "Can you get me there?" The question struck him harder than he expected. He had told her he would. He meant it. Still, hearing her ask for the road felt like a door closing inside him. "Yes," he said, "if it opens, I take you." Her face softened, but not with relief alone. "Thank you." He nodded because he did not trust his voice. By noon, the wind dropped enough for a single stage to risk the South Cut. Caleb hitched the fresh team and took Miriam back to False Kettle with Alma beside them. He did not want Hattie alone with her. He did not want Warren within sight of her. He did not want to feel the ache that came from doing the right thing and hating it. The stage stood in the yard, wheels rimmed with ice, driver nervous and eager to leave. Caleb paid for Miriam's seat in silver. "This is not Warren's credit," he told the driver. "This is mine. You carry her to Laramie Bend and put her inside the station house there." The driver looked at Miriam. "You ready?" Miriam's trunk was still inside Hattie's storage room. Hattie came out with it only after Alma threatened to fetch it herself. Miriam put one hand on the trunk, then stopped. Across the yard, Noel rode in from the east, snow crusted on his sleeves. He was breathing hard. "Mrs. Bell," he called before he seemed to realize he had used her name with respect. Warren rode behind him with 2 freight sleds. From one of those sleds hung black road ribbons, already tied. Miriam's eyes fixed on them. Noel slid from his horse. They moved the markers past the windbreak. "Mr. Warren says North Road is open. It is not. One team already went wide." Warren swore at him. "Hold your tongue." The driver on Miriam's stage looked at the sky. "Lady, I have to leave now." Caleb stood very still. Here was the road he had promised her, paid for, open enough to take. Here was the danger Warren had made. Miriam looked at Caleb. "If I go now, who knows the wrong markers?" "I do," Caleb said. "You know where they used to be. I saw where he hung them yesterday and I took one." "Miriam." It was the first time he had said her given name. She heard it, he saw that she heard it. "You told me choice matters when no one else can hear," she said. "I hear myself." The driver snapped, "Ma'am, I cannot wait." Miriam took her trunk off the stage step and set it back in the snow. "Then go," she said. The driver stared at the empty fare in Caleb's hand, then at the black ribbons on Warren's sled. For once, leaving looked smaller than staying. Caleb felt fear and admiration hit him together. "You are not proving anything to me," he said. "No," Miriam answered. "I am proving something to myself." Warren laughed harshly. "There is your scandal, Caleb. She will not leave." Miriam turned on him. "I am not staying for your story." The stage pulled away without her. Her safe seat vanished down the South Road. Caleb looked at the empty track it left behind and knew that whatever happened now, Miriam Bell had already paid a cost no one could call small. They rode north. Caleb drove. Miriam sat beside him, one hand gripping the side rail and the other holding the black ribbon in her lap. Alma stayed at Snowmelt to keep the stove and signal smoke. Caleb had tried to leave Miriam with her. Miriam had looked toward the North Hills and said, "If Warren's men follow the wrong markers, they will not believe your memory. They may believe the woman who saw him place the cloth." Caleb could not argue with that. The North Road had not been a road for 3 years. It was a white scar through sage and low pine, half buried, half remembered. Caleb felt each bend in his bones. Here was the gully where Ruth had asked if he trusted Warren's markers. Here was the rise where he had said yes. Here was the long hollow where her cough had started. Miriam did not fill the silence. At last she said, "Tell me where not to step." He almost said everywhere. Instead he pointed. "That lip drifts hollow. That flat looks safe but hides a ditch. The shelter is beyond the split pine." "Why did you close it?" The team pulled against a drift. Caleb let them breathe before answering. "Because I could not bear men warming themselves beside the stove. I failed to reach in time." Miriam's face changed, but she did not give him pity. That made the confession possible. "Ruth was carrying our child. Fever came after the storm. Doctor said it would have come anyway. Alma said grief wants a reason. I gave it one. Warren's ribbons led me wrong, but I chose to follow. Did Warren know the road was wrong? He wanted his freight first through the contract line. The North Shelter stove made his road worth money. He marked a shortcut. Maybe he thought we would make it. Maybe he did not care. And today he is doing it again. Caleb nodded. Miriam looked ahead. Then opening that shelter is not betraying Ruth. The words went through him like cold water under ice. Do not speak of her as if you knew her. Miriam accepted the rebuke. I speak of a stove. If she needed it and did not reach it, I think she would want someone else to reach it. Caleb pulled the team to a halt. For a moment, the only sound was wind and hoarse breath. He should have been angry. He wanted to be angry. But the truth of what she said stood there with them, plain and hard. You are bold for a woman stranded by a false letter, he said. No, she said. I am tired of men using my quiet as permission. He looked at her then, really looked, and the feeling he had fenced off since last night came nearer. Miriam was frightened. Of course she was, but fear in her did not ask to be worshipped or managed. It asked to be met honestly. Caleb wanted her to stay. He wanted it with a force that scared him. So he said the only safe thing. When this is done, I still owe you a road out. Miriam looked ahead again. And if I do not take it, then I will ask you properly after the road is open. She did not smile this time. Her eyes filled, but no tear fell. Properly matters, she said. It is the only way it counts. They drove on. Near the windbreak, they found the first freight sled stuck nose down in a drift. 2 men worked at the runners while a third held a horse team that was close to panic. Warren stood on the sled, shouting orders that the wind tore apart. Turn them left, Warren yelled. The shelter is past the next rise. It is not, Miriam said. One of the drivers turned. It was a young man with a red scarf frozen stiff at his throat. Caleb recognized him as Eben Cole, a good teamster who had taken Warren's wage after his father broke a hip. Eben's eyes widened. Mr. Voss. Warren saw Caleb and Miriam together and bared his teeth. You brought her into this. Good. Let the men see what has addled your judgment. Miriam stood in the sled before Caleb could stop her. Your black ribbons point to a wind pit. The shelter door is not where he says. Warren laughed. A bride from Nebraska knows my freight road. A station keeper's daughter knows snow. Another gust hit. The lead horse reared, jerking Eben sideways. He fell knee-deep into the drift beside the runner. Snow broke under him. His shout cut through every other sound. The drift swallowed him to the chest. Caleb leaped from the sled. Stay back, he called to Miriam. She did not stay back. She dropped flat and crawled, spreading her weight the way stage men did near hollow snow. Caleb saw it and understood. If he ran straight in, he might break the crust and bury them both. Rope, Miriam shouted. Caleb tore the coil from his sled. Warren stood frozen on the freight runner. He is your man, Miriam screamed at him. Throw your rope. Warren grabbed a coil, hesitated, then looked at the freight load as if saving a rope mattered more than saving the driver. The second driver saw the hesitation. So did Noel. In that 1 second, Warren lost more than time. Caleb threw his rope. Miriam caught it, looped it under her arms, and crawled the last few feet. Eben, she said, voice steady, look at me, do not fight the snow. Give me your right hand. I can't feel my feet. Then feel my hand. He reached, she caught him. Caleb and the other driver pulled. The snow cracked. Miriam slid forward nearly into the hollow, but Caleb wrapped the rope around his arm and braced. Pain tore through his shoulder. He held. Pull, Miriam shouted. The second driver pulled. Even Noel, shaking and pale, grabbed the line. Eben came free in a rush of snow and fear. Miriam rolled onto her side, gasping. Caleb reached her and put one hand near her shoulder without touching. "Are you hurt?" "No." Eben coughed, then stared at Warren. "You said the shelter was that way." "It is," Warren snapped. "She made a scene and you panicked." Miriam pushed herself to her knees. Her hair had come loose. Snow clung to her lashes. She pulled the black ribbon from her pocket and held it up. "I cut this from the false marker yesterday," she said. "There are 3 more tied on the same wrong line. He did not make a mistake once. He marked danger twice." "Cloth proves nothing," Warren said. "No," Miriam said. "Eben nearly freezing where your marker sent him proves what cloth alone cannot." Eben looked at Caleb, then at the hollow, then at Warren. No one laughed. No one looked at Caleb for permission. They looked at the hole in the snow. "Where is the real shelter?" he asked Miriam. Warren's face went dark. "You work for me." "Not if you are trying to bury me." That was the first break. Caleb heard it like ice cracking on a river. Miriam stood, unsteady but upright. She pointed toward the split pine barely visible through the snow. "The wind has buried the front door, but if this shelter is like the old stations, there is a lee door on the east side, low and mean-looking, because pretty doors freeze shut." Caleb stared at her. Ruth had hated that ugly lee door. "There is," he said. Warren jumped from the sled. "You open that shelter under my freight authority or you answer for theft." Caleb turned. "It is my land." "Your land feeds on my freight." "Not after today." Warren drew himself up, but the men were no longer looking at him first. They were watching Miriam. She was already moving toward the split pine. The lee door was buried under a hard shoulder of drift. Caleb took the shovel from the sled. Miriam took the second one from Warren's load without asking. He cursed at her. She ignored him. They dug. Every shovel stroke changed the air around them. Men who had stood waiting for orders began working. Eben, wrapped in Caleb's spare blanket, pointed out where the second sled had slid. Noel cut the horses loose from the bad angle. The other driver dragged stove pipe from Warren's freight because warmth had become more important than ownership. Warren shouted until his voice cracked. No one moved faster for him. At last Caleb struck wood. His breath stopped. For 3 years the North Shelter had existed in his mind as a locked place full of last words. Now it was just a door under snow, warped at the bottom, still holding. Miriam set her shovel aside. "You open it." He shook his head once. "You found it." "You locked it." That was true too. Caleb pulled the bar. The door stuck. He put his shoulder to it. Old ice broke. The door groaned inward and dead cold air rolled out. No ghost came with it. Just darkness, dust, and the iron belly of a stove waiting to be used. Caleb stepped back. Miriam took the lamp from his sled, lit it with numb fingers and walked in first. "Bring Eben," she called. "Then the horses, stove next. Dry sacks against the east wall. If Warren wants to argue, let him argue outside with the weather." The men obeyed. Not because she had a paper, not because Caleb told them, because she had saved one of them and found the door Warren's ribbons had hidden. Warren saw it. His face changed from anger to something uglier. He strode into the shelter after Miriam and grabbed the lamp from the nail where she had hung it. "This freight is mine," he said. "This stove lights for my men first. Caleb can house his woman after my loads are safe." The shelter went still. Caleb moved toward him, but Miriam spoke first. "Put the lamp back." Warren laughed. "Or what?" "Or every man here will know you would rather hold light than use it." Eben stood, blanket still around his shoulders. "Put it back, Mr. Warren." Warren looked at him. "You forget who pays you." "I remember who pulled me out." The second break was louder. The other driver stepped between Warren and the stove, not bravely at first, just enough that Warren had to look around him. Noel did not step beside Eben, but he did not stand beside Warren either. Warren raised the lamp higher. "Without my freight, none of you eat." Miriam pointed to the sled outside, "Then unload it." "You do not give orders here." "No," she said. "The storm does, the stove does, the man you nearly killed does. I am only saying what all of them already know." Caleb felt something move through the room. It was not a crowd turning for a show. It was colder and stronger than that. Men deciding they wanted to live more than they wanted Warren's favor. Eben took the lamp from Warren's hand. Warren swung at him. Caleb caught Warren's wrist before the blow landed and shoved him back against the wall. Not hard enough to injure, hard enough to end the question. "You are finished giving orders under my roof," Caleb said. "Your roof," Warren spat. "You shut this place and let it rot." Caleb looked at the stove, the men, Miriam's pale face in lamplight. "Then I open it now." Outside, the drivers began unloading Warren's freight. Flour sacks came in first. Then salt pork, lamp oil, stove pipe, blankets, coffee, oats. Every item placed against the wall was money leaving Warren's control and becoming survival under Snowmelt's roof. Warren rushed for the door. Miriam stepped in his way, not close enough for him to touch, close enough to make every man see. "You marked the wrong road," she said. "Move." "You tore my ticket." "Move." "You refused your own driver a rope." He lunged past her. Caleb caught him again, but Miriam did not shrink. She turned to Eben. "Say it once so, he cannot sell a different story at False Kettle." Eben looked frightened. Then he looked at the hollow where he had nearly gone under. "Mr. Warren marked us wrong," Eben said. "Mrs. Bell warned us. He would not throw rope." Warren's mouth opened. Noel spoke next, voice thin. "He told me to tie the ribbons past the safe bend. Said Caleb would have to open the shelter or lose the contract." That was enough. Not a document, not an official seal, not a clever proof to be explained. Warren's own men said what he had done while the wrong road sat outside and the rescued driver shook under Caleb's blanket. Caleb released Warren. "You have two choices," Caleb said. "Sit in the corner until the blow passes or take the saddle horse and ride south alone." Warren looked at the men, expecting fear to return. It did not. He chose the corner. They kept the stove hot through the night. Miriam worked until her hands trembled. She set wet mittens near the stove, counted blankets, poured coffee, and made Warren's own freight save the men he had endangered. Caleb tried twice to make her sit. She refused once. The second time he did not command. He brought a crate near the stove and set a cup on it. "If you fall over," he said, "I lose the only station keeper in the room." She sat. He knelt beside Eben to check the driver's feet. Miriam watched him wrap the cloth gently, no roughness, no display. The look on her face made Caleb's hands slow. "What?" he asked. "You are careful with men who cannot pay you back." "Eben paid me back when he told the truth." "That is not why you did it." He tied the bandage and stood. "No." The room warmed. The walls dripped. The north shelter smelled of smoke again, and coffee, and frightened men becoming less frightened. At the far wall, Warren sat with his arms folded and his face empty of power. No one asked him where to put freight. No one asked if they could eat. No one asked which road was safe. Every lost question was a cost. Near midnight, Caleb stepped outside. Miriam followed with 2 cups. The storm had softened to steady snow. The world was white and close. From the open shelter door, lamplight fell across the drift where she had crawled to Eben. "You should be inside," Caleb said. "So should you." He took the cup. For a while they stood without speaking. Then Caleb said, "I wanted you to take the stage." "I know. I wanted it because it was right, and because if you left, I would not have to learn how badly I wanted you to stay." The words hung between them, plain and dangerous. Miriam's hands tightened around her cup. Caleb. Hearing his name from her felt like a hand laid over an old wound, not pressing, just present. I will not ask tonight, he said. Not here, not while you are tired and grateful and snowed in. Her eyes shone in the lamplight from the door. That may be the kindest thing a man has ever refused to take from me. He looked away because the tenderness in him had become too visible. When the road opens, he said, I will hitch for you. And if I ask you not to, then I will court you with the road open behind you. She smiled then, not faintly like in the barn, but with warmth that reached him and stayed. Properly, she said. Properly. By dawn, the storm had broken. The freight men left the north shelter in a line behind Caleb, not Warren. Warren rode a tired saddle horse at the rear because no driver would give him a sled seat. His freight, what remained of it, stayed in the shelter by agreement of the men who had unloaded it. It would be used for stranded teams and charged against Warren's own winter account. That loss hurt him more than cold. At False Kettle, Hattie Crow opened the boarding house door with a face full of prepared excuses. She stopped when she saw Eben wrapped in Caleb's blanket, Noel leading Warren's horse, and Miriam sitting upright beside Alma on the sled. The yard gathered quickly, hostler, driver, 2 ranch hands from the south road, a woman with a baby bundled under her shawl waiting for a stage that had not come. Hattie saw the woman and moved as if to block the doorway. Alma's cane struck the step. Do not try it, Alma said. Hattie flushed. Mrs. Voss, I did not know what Warren had done. Miriam climbed down slowly. Her legs were stiff from cold and work, but she stood straight. You knew he tore my ticket, she said. You knew your stove was empty enough to take me. You looked at him before you refused. Hattie's eyes filled. Caleb felt no pity yet. Tears cost less than firewood. Eben spoke from the sled. Mrs. Bell saved my life after Warren marked us wrong. Noel added, and Hattie took $2 from Warren yesterday to say no room if the bride came back. Hattie turned on him. Noel. I wrote it in the side book, he said, then seemed to remember documents were less important than the woman in front of him. But I saw the coins too. The hostler took his cap off. The stage driver muttered, she asked for fire, not favor. The woman with the bundled baby looked at Hattie, then at Miriam. Then she stepped closer to Miriam, not Hattie. Miriam did not ask for revenge. She did not need to. Caleb stepped to the boarding house door and opened it wide. Any stranded woman gets the stove first until the road's clear. Hattie, you will cook and carry wood under Alma's count. You will not decide who is decent enough to be warm. Hattie looked to Warren. Warren said nothing. He had no freight men beside him, no goods under his command, no driver waiting for his whistle. Alma climbed down with Caleb's help and took the chair by the stove as if she had owned it for years. Bring in the woman with the baby. Miriam met Hattie's eyes. You can start repair by opening the door before you are told. Hattie broke then, but not into a useless apology. She moved. She opened the door wider. She took the woman's bundle. She carried wood. She did it with everyone watching. That was the cost. Warren tried one last time. Caleb, he said in the yard, low and bitter, you cannot cut me out. The winter freight contract names Voss Access. Caleb faced him. Voss Access is mine through Snowmelt Land. The brokers will listen to me. Eben, still pale, said from the sled, not the drivers. The other driver nodded. I will not haul Warren's North Road again. Noel looked at Warren and then away. I will balance the lost freight against his account. By noon, no driver in the yard would sign Warren's North Freight sheet. His contract still had ink, but no hands left to pull it. Warren stared at them, as if betrayal had been invented that morning. Caleb took the black ribbons from Miriam. She gave them willingly. He tied them around Warren's saddle horn. "There," Caleb said, "your markers go with you." Warren's face went red. "This is not finished." "For you it is," Caleb said. "You do not cross Snowmelt land. You do not use my shelter. You do not write my name to any agency. And if another letter goes out under my mark, the drivers who heard Eben will carry the answer for free." Warren looked at Miriam. "All this for a woman you say you did not order." Caleb did not look away. "All this because I did not order her, and she still deserved truth." Miriam's breath caught. Warren mounted. No one helped him. No one held his stirrup. No one loaded his sled. He rode out with his own black ribbons knocking against the saddle horn, while the freight men carried stove wood past him into Hattie's boarding house. The change did not end with him leaving the yard. Caleb made the drivers speak the new rule out loud before any team moved. No North freight would run by Warren's markers. No woman stranded by a false agency letter would be kept from a stove. No account in Warren's book could close Snowmelt shelter while people were caught between roads. Eben said it first, still shaking but clear. The other driver repeated it. Noel wrote it because clerks trusted ink, but the power of it was not in the writing. It was in Hattie carrying blankets to the woman with the baby while every person in the yard watched her obey the warmth she had denied Miriam. Miriam stood near the door, quiet and tired. Caleb saw the moment Hattie approached her. "Mrs. Bell," Hattie said, voice raw, "I was afraid of losing the room contract." "You did lose it," Miriam said. Hattie lowered her eyes. "But you can earn back the right to keep a stove," Miriam added. "Not from me, from the next woman who knocks." It was not forgiveness. It was harder and cleaner than that. Hattie nodded and went back for more wood. Caleb watched Miriam give consequence without cruelty. It made him want her more, and it made him more careful with the wanting. By afternoon, the south road opened properly. Caleb hitched the sled. Miriam stood on Snowmelt porch with her trunk beside her, wearing Alma's gray shawl. The ranch yard was bright after the storm, every roof sharp with snow. Smoke rose from the house, the barn, and far off from the reopened north shelter. Caleb brought the team to the porch and set the brake. "Laramie Bend Road is clear," he said. Alma stood inside the open doorway, pretending not to listen. Miriam looked at the sled. It had blankets, a food bundle, coffee, and the two torn halves of her ticket tucked inside an envelope. Caleb had not mended the ticket or hidden it. He had kept the proof of the road owed. "You packed for me," she said. "I said I would. And if I climb in, I drive. All the way. All the way." She stepped down from the porch and came close enough that he could see the small windburn mark on her cheek from the night before. "And if I do not climb in." Caleb's throat tightened. "Then I put the team up," he said. "I ask whether I may call on you tomorrow evening in my own kitchen, with my mother in the next room and the south road open." Miriam looked toward that road. For a long moment she did not speak. He forced himself not to fill the silence. That silence was hers. At last she lifted her trunk from the porch and carried it past the sled. Caleb's heart dropped before he understood. She carried it into the house. Alma made a sound from inside that was suspiciously like a laugh. Miriam came back without the trunk. "Tomorrow evening is too late," she said. Caleb stared at her. "I have been awake most of the night," she continued, and now there was a smile in her voice. "I am not fit for courtship talk until I sleep. Ask at supper." "Supper," he repeated. "Properly." He took off his hat. "Miriam Bell, may I court you while every road out of Snowmelt stays open to you?" Her eyes shone, but her answer was steady. "Yes, Caleb Voss, you may." He did not touch her until she offered her hand. When she did, he took it gently in front of the open road, the hitched team, and the house where no lie had power over her. His hand was cold. Hers was warm from carrying her own trunk inside. The torn ticket stayed on the kitchen shelf, not mended and not hidden. It no longer meant Miriam had been stranded. It meant the road had stayed open until she chose. At dusk, Miriam walked to the north shelf by the kitchen and wrote a short list for the reopened shelter: blankets, lamp oil, oats, coffee, dry socks, shovel by lead door. She wrote in plain letters so any driver could understand. Caleb stood beside her with another pencil, adding nothing until she asked. The last line she wrote was not her name. It was simpler than that. Keep the lead door clear. Then she set the pencil down, opened the kitchen door herself, and looked north where the shelter smoke rose under a clean winter sky. Caleb waited at her side, not ahead of her, not behind her, while the road south remained open and unused. Behind her the stove was lit. Ahead of her the road was open. This time no one else held the ticket.